With high-profile crimes yet to see justice, has the death penalty been put to death in Florida? The Supreme Court of state rules and people take sides.
I think it's important that those families be cognizant of the fact that we will follow a law and we will seek the death penalty in appropriate cases.
Certainly a defendant facing the death penalty, this is a benefit to them. They're no longer facing the death penalty until the law in Florida changed to comport with the ruling that came out.
What does it mean for local cases you've followed over the recent years? We have attorneys on both ends of the debate. Plus, debates are about done ahead of the first meaningful votes in election 2016. Analysis and conversation concerning Democrats and the GOP and the White House on This Week in Jacksonville. Thanks for joining us this Sunday morning. Prosecutors from all over the state of Florida met in Tallahassee this week trying to figure out where to go next after the Supreme Court ruled Florida's death penalty system unconstitutional. 3 local death penalty cases have been put on hold momentarily because of the ruling. And there are some big issues that state prosecutors need to tackle. Supreme Court justices deciding that the sentencing procedure here in Florida is flawed and unconstitutional because the jury only advises a judge on whether it recommends the death penalty. Ultimately, the judge made the ruling and could go against the jury's wishes. Still less than 2 weeks after the 8-1 ruling, judges, defense lawyers, and prosecutors are scrambling to sort out the implications of the Supreme Court's ruling on Florida's death penalty. Legal experts say the death penalty is off the table right now.
Certainly a defendant facing the death penalty, this is a benefit to them. They're no longer facing the death penalty until the law in Florida changed to comport with the ruling that came out.
Within hours of the Supreme Court's ruling, attorneys for Donald Smith filed a motion to bar the prosecution from seeking the death penalty if he's convicted in the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Cherish Periwinkle. Just the week before that, Assistant State Attorney Bernie De La Rianda told News4Jax families of victims are troubled by the ruling.
Well, I think it's important that those families be cognizant of the fact that we will follow a law and we will seek the death penalty in appropriate cases, and we will battle each one case individually at a time in terms of seeking justice.
Now, many are looking to Tallahassee to find out what's next. Lawmakers intend, at the very least, to resolve the main issue regarding the judge's ultimate power to impose sentences. The Supreme Court's decision also comes with a price tag for Florida taxpayers. Prosecutors, public defenders, state-paid lawyers representing death row inmates told lawmakers that the ruling will increase their workloads. So joining us this morning, Julie Schlacks, now with Espenship, Schlacks, and Albee, previously 12 years as a prosecutor in Jacksonville. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
Also Rod Sullivan, a constitutional law instructor at Florida Coastal Law School, a guest from time to time with us. So I appreciate both of you kind of weighing in. And Julie, let me ask you to maybe start looking for your opinion. How does this change things right now?
Well, it's my opinion that currently in the state of Florida, we do not have a statute that allows for a death penalty that is constitutional. That was their ultimate ruling. Sure. So until such time as the legislature acts to create a new statutory scheme, and however they choose to do it, and they certainly have an opportunity to change quite a few things if they wish, the state cannot proceed on a death penalty.
Yeah, Rod Sullivan, your opinion on this?
Julie and I disagree on this issue, and my opinion is that the Supreme Court struck down a very narrow portion of the death penalty statute, which is the procedure by which death penalties are imposed. It's my opinion that courts can navigate around that, give defendants the more constitutional rights or more rights than they have under the statute, and thereby comply with the Supreme Court's decision. Now, that may sound a little complex, but really all I think the court needs to do is say, we're going to have a sentencing phase. I'm going to give the jurors an interrogatories. I'm going to ask them to decide yes and no on aggravating factors, mitigating factors, and balance between the two, and then I'm going to decide based upon those jury interrogatories. That doesn't require a new statute. So I think those death penalty cases can go forward.
Julie Schlacks, I know that we just mentioned you spent a dozen years as a prosecutor now on the defense side. I know you've got a case that could go that way, but I don't want to hear about that specific case. And I want to make that clear. Donald Smith is who I'm referring to. Would that be fair to you? Is there a fair way that the system works out proceeding to address the Supreme Court's concerns about how death penalty cases are decided here?
Well, from a defense attorney standpoint, in regards to any case pending right now, and I do have several, part of me thinks, well, if the state wants to make that decision, I think actually you're giving my client more appellate rights because I don't think they can constitutionally proceed without the legislature. I think it's a separation of powers issue. I don't think any judge, or even with the aid of defense attorneys and prosecutors, go back and tweak the jury instructions and actually start informing the jury contrary to what the written law is. Because the written law right now says it should be a recommendation. And the United States Supreme Court has said, no, we can't have a judge making the final call.
Is that, as I understand it, Florida's kind of an outlier on this, and that's how they proceed. This is unusual, is that right?
Well, it's not unusual to the extent that virtually all other sentences are handled this way. I mean, the judge makes the decision as to whether there's aggravating or mitigating factors and then imposes a sentence. So I would say that the Florida procedure is somewhat in concert with other felony cases. But yeah, Florida is different in the way it administers the death penalty.
So 389 inmates on Florida's death row, the Supreme Court, do they reverse all those sentences or only those open on appeal? Are all 389 inmates who are facing the death penalty free and clear, so to speak, obviously still in prison?
I would imagine we could agree that they will have lawyers that will file motions on their behalf.
389 motions that will be filed, that's right.
I think that's probably without question.
Yes.
Now, whether or not they'll be granted, I think the first thing that has to happen is Hurst was remanded back to the Florida Supreme Court, and then they have to make a decision on what happens to that case.
Okay, so just briefly summarize the Hurst case that you're referring to.
Well, you mean factually?
Well, so everybody knows, so I know exactly what you're referring to when you say the Hurst case.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, the Hurst decision was a death penalty case that went up to the United States Supreme Court, and the United States Supreme Court granted certiorari. And although they limited their decision, essentially they sent it back to the Florida Supreme Court to say, because the judge was making the final determination, because a jury did not find beyond a reasonable doubt, because under Florida's sentencing scheme, it's only a mere recommendation.
Right.
And under Florida's sentencing scheme, it's only required by a majority. They sent it back to the Florida Supreme Court to determine, okay, is that what they call harmless error? I imagine there are proponents who will think that ultimately the Florida Supreme Court will say it is harmless error because the underlying facts involved a felony murder. And one of the aggravators that the state can proceed on is basically what they call contemporaneous felony. So the jurors in the two separate sentencing hearings that Hurst has previously had found beyond a reasonable doubt that a felony murder occurred. So at least one aggravator, just by virtue of looking at the record, can be shown to have been found by all jurors beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, here's the problem in Hurst, though. It was a 7-2 vote. And he was brought up on 2 aggravating factors. So defense counsel rightfully said, well, how do we know that the vote wasn't, 3 to 5 and 4 to 3 and whatever? So we really can't unambiguously say that this jury found an aggravating factor. Now, the facts of the case are, Mr. Hurst killed his supervisor at a Popeye's fried chicken, stuffed her in the refrigerator and left there overnight. So the question is that a particularly heinous crime? And I think that many people would say yes. But then you have to balance that against the mitigating factors, and you have to say, do the mitigating factors outweigh the aggravating factors? So there's a lot of factual determinations that a jury could be asked to make in this case. And when it's a 7-2 vote, it's hard to say it's harmless error.
So right now, and we're going to wrap up here, we're kind of out of time, but right now there is no death penalty available in the state of Florida. Is that accurate?
That's Julie's position. That's not mine.
All right. So 2 different sides of the coin, I would say. Thank you so much, each of you, for providing your perspectives this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Iowa and the first votes that matter in this election cycle just a week from tomorrow. So coming up next, what to expect among the presidential candidates as our political analyst joins us. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
She said yes. You're the best man.
I got this. Nissan Sentra. With push-button start, Bose Premium Audio, and hands-free text messaging assistant. Choose Sentra, J.D. Power's highest-ranked compact car in initial quality. Now just $139 per month. Sentra, step it up.
You're the man.
Shop ChooseNissan.com. Innovation that excites.
When you've been injured in an accident, it's very important to call Harrell & Harrell early in the process. We will sit down and talk with you for free. Ultimately, our goal is to get you the justice that you deserve.
Harrell & Harrell. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
This is Pastor R.J. Washington of the Titus Harvest Dome. Join us on Channel 4 every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. We're going to have a God time. Yes.
The Wolfson Children's Challenge celebrates the children treated at Wolfson Children's Hospital. This year's event will be held on January 30th at the baseball grounds of Jacksonville. Sign up a team for the 55K Ultra Relay, the 30-mile individual race, or register your kids for the 1-mile run. Find out more at wolfsonchildrenschallenge.org.
We can't save too much money because we are in debt. Working with somebody at the bank is different. I don't really know what they can help us with. We're hoping to get a little guidance with buying a house and also just what to do financially. The Insights by Regions helped me see how we can save and pay off our debt at the same time and why we would want to do that. I feel so much better knowing that everything's taken care of. I'm so ready to take our next step.
This weekend, come discover the beauty of Black River and get a brand new turnkey country home on your lot for only $99.9. That's right, just $99.9 for a completely finished 3-bedroom, 2-bath turnkey country home on your 2 to 8 acre home site within the gated waterfront community of Black River. Enjoy private access to the St. Mary's River, a riverfront park, community dock, private boat launch, and a prime location convenient to downtown Jacksonville. Call now, 877-525-3033.
Fighting cancer with food? 3 life-threatening cancers. This local mom said no to chemo and yes to food.
I thought, okay, I need to take a different approach to my lifestyle.
Her diet secrets and the morning meal that left her cancer-free. Monday on the 10 o'clock news.
Broken.
News 4 Jax uncovered over 100 broken meters, exposing losses to taxpayers and businesses.
Lost revenue over 6 months, $48,000.
Our investigation flooring city leaders.
Until this week, we were not aware.
Now the fix is in. Broken meters out.
No question that you brought it to the surface. You let everybody understand that it was an issue.
News 4 Jax investigations. It's about results. You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
With just a week until the Iowa caucus, the campaigning is becoming more heated in election 2016. Here's an example from the most recent Democratic debate.
Secretary Clinton knows that what she says is very disingenuous.
I'm not sure whether we're talking about the plan you just introduced tonight or we're talking about the plan you introduced 9 times in the Congress.
Yeah, the gloves are also off on the Republican side as well, with 2 one-time Florida friends turned foes slugging it out on the airwaves.
We all see what's happening. Jeb Bush is desperate and spending millions on false attacks.
Marco Rubio, just another Washington politician we can't trust.
News 4 Jax political analyst Jennifer Carroll joining us, and as the candidates clamor for Iowa here, latest poll shows a close race between Trump and Cruz, Marco Rubio third. Then on the Democrat side, Bernie Sanders, is he a front runner now in New Hampshire? And of course, it all depends on the day and the poll, right?
This is very true, but Bernie Sanders have shown at the initial onset during the campaign that he wasn't viable for anything. Of late, he's really catching the heels of Hillary Clinton, and he has a broad base demographics. Over 60% of the Democrats support him, staunch Democrats, as well as Hispanics, whereas about 50% of blacks support Hillary Clinton, and she's lost some of her base with the Democrats. So Hillary Clinton, seeing that Bernie Sanders is now being taken more seriously with the voters, that she has requested from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who said, we're not going to have any more debates, to have a debate in prime time on Monday, the 25th. It's going to be a town hall type of town hall debate.
Does this go back to some of the questions we had asked over the last several months? Why are Democrats only debating when nobody's watching on a Saturday or Sunday? Obviously, this is a prime time debate now.
Well, it's serious now for Hillary Clinton, because if you're losing your populace, and then with the Benghazi hearings and the emails, that's a debacle now with the security posed threat that she had for those classified information that she had on her server, and every day is something trickling out. her numbers are dwindling and people are getting a little skittish to support her, that she may not, if she is the nominee, may not be able to survive it. So if Bernie Sanders is seen as a person that they can put a wholehearted vote behind and he becomes the nominee, he's not going to have an FBI investigation and possibly having to go before the courthouse and the White House like Jeb Bush says. So she wants to come out there and now put some negatives out about Bernie Sanders because his record hasn't been truly tested and he hasn't had an opponent really go after him with regards to his record. So I believe with this debate on Monday night that she will be attacking him a little bit more so to discredit him.
Well, in some of the debates, Bernie Sanders has said, hey, I'm not going to talk about some of that stuff, meaning Bill Clinton's past or Libya and Benghazi and some of those things. It seems like maybe that strategy has to change for him, right?
Well, no, because the media is doing that. He doesn't have to do that, but the strategy is going to change for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. She tried that a little bit during the debate, but backed off some because she needs his supporters if she's going to win the nomination. And if, again, if she comes out of this FBI investigation and fares well, but if she alienates his supporters, that's going to be a loss for her in the primary.
What a balancing act a candidate like Hillary Clinton has to do because she kind of battles the perception that she's unkind or unfriendly or some of those. So if you go too hard at Bernie Sanders, do you risk being viewed unfavorably?
Absolutely, because he's appealing to the young voters. He's appealing to, she appeals more to moderates. He appeals more to the hardliner Democrats as well as the Hispanic. Those are two populists that she cannot afford to lose at all.
But he's a socialist. He says so.
Well,
will Democrats get behind a candidate who says, I'm socialist?
The mainstream Democrats probably not. The establishment Democrats probably not. As a matter of fact, we heard Joe Biden come out and say people are not going to vote for a socialist. But the people that's coming in drones to hear him speak at his forums, he's telling them the truth. And they appreciate him being honest with them. He's not sugarcoating it. So if they're still coming in 20,000 and 30,000 to see him, and Hillary Clinton is not bringing in those sort of numbers of people coming to see her, you can't say that his supporters are not real because they're actually coming to see him, hearing what he's saying. He's not fibbing about what he's saying. He's being honest about who he is. He tells you, I want free college. I want you to have free medical. And Hillary Clinton, during the debate, tried to get at him, if you're going to provide free Medicare to expand, how are you going to pay for it? And that means you're going to tax. There's going to be a taxation on the American population. And so she tried to put that out there, but that didn't stick.
Well, let's talk about Republicans, and the front runner there is still Donald Trump. Ted Cruz certainly has made a lot of headway in Iowa. What's going to happen here in this next week or so before the caucus?
Well, as we're seeing with Donald Trump now, at the early set, we saw polling showing Donald Trump in a lead. We have seen trends now, so you have to take it as serious. We're showing the trends where Donald Trump is, in fact, in the lead. So therefore, is he going to win the nomination? Probably so. But he has to get through Iowa, New Hampshire, and many of the other primary states. However, with regards to Donald Trump, he's appealing to those that consider themselves very conservative, and moderate. Now, if you have 30-plus percentage points in those three areas of your voting population, that means that you have probably a good solid base to move into victory. So if Donald Trump comes out of winning Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, then you might as well say that he has it in the bag, because with that groundswell of support now, the mass population will say, okay, well, he is the nominee and we're going to vote for him and support him. But if Ted Cruz wins Iowa, that changes the dynamic a little bit.
And that's my question. What happens if Ted Cruz wins Iowa? And I thought it was really interesting that the Iowa governor said this week, don't vote for him, it'd be a disaster. And that obviously comes down to some economics.
The subsidies. And you know what? And you can't fault Cruz for sticking by his word. If the Republicans say they're not for these government bailouts and getting government out of your hair and states' rights, well, Ted Cruz is that conservative Republican that you should want to support. So, and he hasn't backed down. Ted Cruz did not back down in his position with regards to the subsidies. Yeah. So even though the governor came out and said that, that's particular to Iowa, but it may appeal to other Republicans throughout the country to say, yes, Ted Cruz is truly a conservative for the Republican primary.
Last 30 seconds here. Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush, do they have enough to pull off an upset, say, in Iowa?
Well, it all depends on how the Iowans feel about the negative ads that has been running, and if there's enough doubt that's cast on Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, Donald Trump came out with regards to the birther issue, and Cruz is going after Donald Trump with regards to being that real conservative. So if it splits up people in thinking that one is not what they seem to be, then it could reach down into the second and third tier to help the others pull up as well. So it'd be interesting to see. The real vote is going to be after the caucus, the primary elections, as to how the voters are really going to vote to show us if the polls have been right through all this time.
It's been a roller coaster already, so we'll see how it goes. Jennifer Carroll, our political analyst, we've got a lot to talk about this year.
Yes, we do. It's interesting.
Thank you. China and oil, keeping everything in perspective. An oil and gas expert joining us on This Week in Jacksonville. That's next. Stay with us.
Furniture Mart is having a Stickley truckload sale with incredible prices on bedrooms, dining rooms, living rooms, and more. If you love Stickley furniture, this is the sale for you. Shop early for best selection. Save up to 45%. Furniture Mart, endless possibilities.
Can't wait to try these wings.
I know. And apparently the spicy honey barbecue sauce is so good, it'll change your life.
Yeah?
Mom and Dad, can I borrow the car?
Our son's in a boy band?
We have a son?
Life-changing? Maybe. Indescribably good? Definitely. The boneless wings meal with spicy honey barbecue sauce, served with crinkle fries and a small drink. Zaxby's. Indescribably good.
Dad's telling the whole world about the great deal he got on high-speed internet from AT&T.
Hey, everybody. My sister took my advice and signed up for AT&T.
George. Hey, Tiffany.
Hey, what's up, girl? Check yourself, Rodney.
Right now, he's probably talking about how reliable our connection is.
My connection is super reliable, so I know I can depend on it working.
Sounds good. Do I know you?
See.
Get a deal worth talking about. Get high-speed internet from AT&T. Just $15 a month for 12 months with other qualifying service.
This is Pastor R.J. Washington of the Titus Harvest Dome. Join us on Channel 4 every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. We're going to have a God time. Yes.
Get ready for the 2016 Gate River Run, Jacksonville's premier running event. If you're a competitive runner or run just for fun, there's an event for you. Register for the 15K, 5K, or 1 mile event. Then join Channel 4 on March 12th at the Jacksonville Sports Complex. Get all the details at GateRiverRun15K.com.
Mesothelioma. It's a disease caused from exposure to asbestos. If you know someone diagnosed, you should visit forthepeople.com. There you'll find the most up-to-date medical treatment options available and free mesothelioma question and answer book. We can help guide you and your family through these difficult times and even provide assistance to veterans in filing for their VA claims. Call us at 1-800-MORGAN-LAW or visit forthepeople.com. We can help.
Performance reimagined. Style reinvented. Sophistication redefined. Introducing the all-new Lexus RX and RX Hybrid. Agile handling. Available 12.3-inch navigation screen and panorama glass roof. Never has luxury been this expressive. This is the pursuit of perfection.
The kissing bug.
The fact that it drinks blood out of your lips isn't the gross part. It actually poops on your face.
Parasites that hijack your body. How do you actually find that if you have one? All New Oz.
Monday at 4 on Channel 4.
Thanks for staying with us on This Week in Jacksonville. You know, there are some significant international economic worries, but crude oil prices remain a big part of the sell-off on the markets. The price is now dipping below $27 a barrel. In June 2014, 18 months ago, oil was trading close to $105 a barrel. Less than $30 a barrel means the oil producers are making little or no money. So joining us this morning, Dr. Ellen Wald. She's an adjunct professor at Jacksonville University, an expert on oil and gas industry. And so, yeah, that 18 months ago versus the price today, why have oil prices fallen so dramatically?
It's great to be here. Thank you. So the basic reason why oil prices have fallen so dramatically is supply and demand. If you think about it, then back in 2014, oil prices were actually starting to decline right before in the fall and the summer, right before we hit November 2014. And that's when OPEC met. And OPEC decided not to cut production levels. And so after that, we saw the dramatic decline that we experienced all throughout 2015. And the issue really is just too many producers, too much oil, and not enough demand.
So is there more supply because of what's happened in America? Accessing the shale formations, fracking, these sorts of things, has that increased supply to this level where the prices have now crashed a little bit?
Shale oil is a huge part of that market and has really raised production significantly. But it's not just shale oil. There's also Russia producing at very high levels and OPEC countries as well. Saudi Arabia is producing also at very high levels.
So as a consumer, boy, I sure like it when I go to the pump and I fill it up and it's not $50, it's $25. That's great for me, but there's a trickle down here. It affects a lot of folks, not even just the energy producers in the energy industry, right?
As a consumer, I love it too. I saw $1.79 the other day.
It's a good thing.
So we think it's terrific, but it's interesting if you look at it. It's actually probably not quite as good as it should be. If you look at the price of crude oil, the price of crude oil is about maybe $27 a barrel, trading about that now. That's a much bigger drop than what we've seen actually in the price of gasoline. And we haven't even seen that translating into things like airline tickets. You know, you'd think we would be seeing these kind of effects, but we haven't. So consumers are excited, but maybe there's not quite as much to be excited about as we should have.
Are there other factors that you see in this energy industry that are going to affect the stock market? Because that's one of the things that's been blamed on the poor performance in the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial and everything in these first couple of months here is oil prices.
Well, a lot of oil companies are suffering from these lower prices, and the ones that are suffering the most are the smaller shale oil producers. Most of them were pretty heavily leveraged, have a lot of loans, a lot of lines of credit from banks. And all throughout 2015, those banks kept the lines of credit open for them because a lot of people thought oil was going back up. And now that it's dropped even more dramatically, we can expect some serious issues going on there. And we're definitely going to be seeing that in the future. And it may not be pretty. But in the long run, it is going to be better because we will see some consolidation, which is good for the industry. Consolidation would be good, and maybe leveling out and not keep dropping like that. We've seen over the years that the energy industry, oil production, that'll change, and I'm sure they'll come back. Dr. Wald, thank you so much. Great to meet you today and hear your perspective. Thank you. All right, so This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. So next time, more on energy. We've got Kevin Doyle, the Executive Director of Consumer Energy Alliance of Florida. He'll join us. Jacksonville City Council President Greg Anderson also planning to be here and talk about some of the local issues that you're concerned about. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air and online at newsforjax.com.